Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
that's a subject out the vehicle,
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units.
Police, stay where you are!
They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers, and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, a bus company puts the brake on a personal injury claim from a car full of passengers.
They were also claiming that they had psychological trauma that was going to last over a year.
A boat enthusiast gets into deep water with his claim.
The wardens of Lake Windermere had to actually rescue him on several occasions.
And the IFED team discover a large stash of cash.
It's interesting to find that amount of cash. It's not something you usually come across in a normal house search.
London's iconic red buses have changed a lot since the early days of horse-drawn wagons. They're now fast, efficient and high-tech. And London is chock-a-block full of them.
In London, operating on behalf of TfL, there's over 7,600 buses. And there are 2.4 billion passenger journeys a year.
Abelio operates 600 of these buses, and out of a whopping 140 million passenger journeys, the vast majority run smoothly. But on the rare occasion there is an accident, Abelio investigates any insurance claims thoroughly, as they did with one received in July 2009.
The claim came off the back of our 350 service, which runs from Hayes Station up to Heathrow. In the summer, 11 o'clock at night, our vehicle was trying to park on the bus stand, and there was a VW Charan taxi cab that was just in front of the bus stand, and our bus clipped it as it was parking.
Despite only nudging the car, it wasn't long before Abelio were contacted by its occupants.
We received in claims from 5 individuals. These claimants were claiming for back and neck injuries of a whiplash-type nature, but they were also claiming that they had psychological trauma that was going to last over a year. That was supposedly backed up by medical evidence. All in all, this mounted up to £27,000 worth of claim against us.
Hang on. That seems a lot of money for a minor incident. Alan's team began investigating the claim.
When the claim came in, we knew something was wrong.
As part of their investigations, Alan's team used state-of-the-art technology.
We've got kit on our buses that enables us to tell the G-forces of any incident.
The G-force was measured as extremely low, meaning there must have been very little contact between the bus and the taxi.
The slow impact nature of this incident, there wasn't going to be psychological trauma, there wasn't going to be back and neck injuries.
Fortunately, on Abelio's buses, there are up to 16 CCTV cameras covering both the inside and outside of each bus. Alan and his team scrutinised the footage from the date in question, only to discover something very surprising.
When we looked at the CCTV, we could see that only the driver was in the cab. In fact, we see the driver get out of the cab, lock it, and go and walk to our driver.
And that looks like a suspiciously empty car to me.
Clearly, the claimants weren't present at the time of the incident.
It became apparent to Alan that the insurance claim was simply a pack of lies.
As a result of this, we immediately contacted the police as part of Operation Catcher.
Operation Catcher is a department within the Metropolitan Police that hunt down organised insurance fraudsters.
If we weren't on top of this and we simply accepted it, first of all, it would snowball and get thoroughly out of hand. And if we were paying off claims like this, not only would fares go up, bus companies would go out of business, and in the end you wouldn't have a public transport system. So there is only one choice for the bus operators, and that's to take a very robust approach and work hand in glove with the police.
Alan and his team now had enough evidence for the claimants to be brought to book.
The individuals were taken to court and found guilty of fraud. 3 individuals received 9 months suspended sentence and 200 hours community service, as well as having to pay costs. The driver, who was at least there at the time, received a 12-month suspended sentence and 300 hours community service, as well as paying costs.
The dodgy claimants were banged to rights, and justice was served. But for Alan, it was a bittersweet victory.
While they were found guilty of fraud, which was satisfactory, I would hope that they would actually receive more robust sentences, because they're premeditated. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It takes time to think about putting in such a claim, and they were trying to extort nearly £30,000 from the company.
But it's not just the shifty claimants that Alan has a problem with, it's those who represent them as well.
I think what would help it is if third-party solicitors actually looked at the credibility of claims that come to them. If you looked at this incident and the circumstances of a slow-speed collision, to claim psychological trauma that would last for more than a year, to claim whiplash, back and neck injuries, just really wasn't credible.
This case was closed, but to Alan's frustration, other chancers continue to try it on with his bus company.
I don't think in any way bus companies are a soft target. Maybe some individuals out there still think that's the case. Given the technology we have, given the amount of effort we go to, and given the approach we take, which is very robust, and our working relationship with the police, anyone who still thinks that is very much mistaken.
Still to come. Police track down a stolen Mercedes in a case that drives the insurance company round the bend.
The vehicle was stopped by the police and the occupants were questioned as regards the legality of the vehicle.
And Royal Mail encounter first-class scammers.
The total value of claims made was £25,000 and we paid out over £15,000.
In January 2012, the City of London Police joined the fight against insurance fraud by forming an elite squad known as IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department.
I would say to anyone who's considering committing insurance fraud that now this is no longer a crime without consequence that it may have been in the past. There is a dedicated 40-strong unit known as IFED that work 24/7 hunting down insurance fraudsters.
They've made over 550 arrests and have saved millions of pounds in fraudulent insurance claims, money which ultimately goes back in our pockets. From now on, fraudsters need to watch their backs.
The message I'd give to people that are considering embarking on insurance fraud is just don't do it. My team, day by day, are getting more sophisticated in tracking down the people that want to try out this type of crime. If you get caught, you're likely to get convicted, and then that is going to affect the rest of your life.
Today, IFED are cracking down on suspected travel insurance scammers. People who falsely claim for the loss or theft of luxury items, such as clothes, jewellery and electronic goods whilst away on holiday. In total, 70 officers are working with the City of London Police up and down the country. One team is led by DC Armand Taylor and head of IFED DCI Dave Wood.
It's now approaching 7 o'clock and we're about to enter the premises of one of our suspects, hopefully arrest him and search his premises looking for property that he's reported stolen.
It seems to be taking a long time for the suspect to answer the door.
Someone's got to be waking up.
Dave is growing increasingly impatient. Today's raid is the result of months of investigative work.
We're thinking it's occupied, but there's no one coming to the door.
It's not looking good. The support team may have to gain entry by force. That will soon wake up any occupants. But in the nick of time, the police spot signs of life through the letterbox.
Police, can you come to the door, please? Morning. I'm from the City London Police Insurance Fraud Team. I'm here today to speak to you regarding a claim that you've made.
Once inside, it doesn't take long to identify their rather shell-shocked target.
You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud by false representation relating to the claim that's been made. I've got to caution you, actually, you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. If you don't want to mention when questioned, something too late to rely on in court. Anything you do so may be given in evidence.
Placing the suspect under immediate arrest is a crucial step in police raid protocol.
You haven't been arrested before, have you?
It appears the suspect has been caught off guard and is visibly shaken.
You're upset about it, but unfortunately this is the way it's going to have to be dealt with today. Alright.
Right, what you can do...
Dave Wood informs the suspect of what's going to happen.
We'll be searching top to bottom for those items you've said were stolen. If you can show us where those items are, it makes it a lot easier. And it also shows you're cooperating with us.
Did you want to help us out with the location of the items? Well, I've got a list. I've got a list in here. I've got a page.
The list is a breakdown of the luxury goods that the suspect claimed had been lost or stolen while on holiday. The suspect cooperates, and IFED commence their search.
They're similar to make and model that have been reported stolen as well, so we'll seize them.
Items can often be stashed in the most unlikely places, but when IFED are in charge, there's nowhere to hide.
We were knocking on the door for quite a while before he opened up, which makes me think, in my suspicious mind, that he may have been stashing stuff around the place, so we can't find it when we come in. So whilst you might think, why am I looking in the bathroom cabinet, that's the reason why.
Coming up, IFED find a number of items of interest,
That's going to be the camera,
including a large stash of cash.
so we'll seize that. Under the proceeds of crime, we can seize it, and then we'll do some further inquiries back at the station.
For many, insurance provides peace of mind. From the thefts of cars and laptops to damage to personal valuables and your home. John Beadle has worked in the industry for 15 years, and in his time, he's come across a few who have tried it on.
Sometimes I wonder if people think insurance companies are completely stupid.
Some of us have been there, sitting in a restaurant or a cafe, you turn round and your bag's gone. Unfortunately for one of John's customers, an impromptu visit to a restaurant ended in disaster.
This gentleman had been shopping when he decided that he would pop into a branch of a well-known restaurant chain for his piri-piri chicken for lunch, and he left his laptop by the side of the table.
The claimer was clearly gutted by his stupidity.
Losing a laptop, of course, can be very upsetting in the sense that you've got a lot, potentially, of precious information on there, so he was clearly upset.
On receipt of the claim, the insurer set about making their usual inquiries, which sparked their suspicions.
It transpired that he hadn't reported this to the restaurant itself, and indeed hadn't reported it to the police either.
They investigated further, and it transpired all wasn't what it seemed.
When we looked at the CCTV footage at the restaurant, he'd never actually even been in the premises that day, let alone with or without his laptop.
The insurer confronted the claimant with their findings, and the claimant admitted that he had in fact made a bogus claim.
We reported him to IFED, and he's ended up with a criminal record, and he will also be entered on the insurance fraud register, which will cause him difficulties in obtaining insurance cover in the future.
But this is just one of the many claimers over the years that have tried to pull the wool over John's eyes. From exaggerated home contents insurance claims to organised insurance scams. One particular chancer thought his claim would be a drop in the ocean.
We do write a lot of insurance business. We're one of the biggest marine insurers in the UK, of course, and that ranges from oil tankers to pleasure craft. One of our customers' boats that he uses on Lake Windermere was put into storage in the winter and stayed in storage for some 5 months until it was taken out in April. when he reported to us that the engine had been damaged during storage.
The claim was for water damage to an inboard motor and soft furnishings on a boat. John could understand his customer's misfortune.
This was a very unlucky policyholder who'd suffered this damage, and of course it would have cost us several £1000s to repair the engine for him.
John and his team decided to drop anchor and process the claim as quickly as possible. But it soon became clear that this claim was not above board.
On making inquiries, we found that before the vessel was put into storage for the winter, the wardens of Lake Windermere had had to actually rescue him on several occasions. On 4 occasions, they'd had to tow our policyholder's boat in because the engine had broken down. In fact, the last occasion was about 2 weeks before he took the policy out with us. On closer examine, the engine was found not to be damaged so much as suffering from wear and tear because of its age.
But this sailor really went overboard with his claim.
He also then alleged that he had actually had the engine repaired regularly, but when we interviewed the person who he said had carried out regular maintenance and repairs of the engine, he said he'd never actually done any work on it whatsoever.
For John, this claimer was simply an opportunist.
I think he knew that the engine was shot to pieces and was no good, and so thought he would take a policy out with us and wait a decent period and then make a claim, and that we wouldn't investigate it.
Unfortunately for our sailing enthusiast, his fake claim was heading for the rocks.
The outcome of this case is that we clearly didn't and aren't going to pay this claim, and we voided the policy, so this gentleman is no longer insured with us.
His claim had sunk without a trace. John and his team weren't going to be taken for a ride.
Absolutely a blatant lie, and a gentleman had thought that we would just pay up, I guess, without investigating this. People need to realise that insurance companies aren't a soft touch.
We all want to own beautiful things, and a luxury car is usually near the top of the list. So when our next claimant had her car stolen, she was understandably upset.
The original claim was for the theft of a Mercedes 180 motor vehicle.
Motor theft is a multi-million-pound business in the UK, so police take it very seriously. Luckily, the car was insured by Direct Line's sister company, Privilege. So the customer reported her vehicle stolen to the Met Police, who issued a crime report, which she then submitted with her claim.
The claim was then processed and it was subsequently paid.
So the road ahead was finally looking clearer for our customer. Her beloved car had been snatched, but the compensation meant she could park her distress, for now.
In March of the following year, 2013, the vehicle was stopped by the police and the occupants of that vehicle were questioned as regards the legality of the vehicle.
The culprits had been caught red-handed, cruising around in our claimant's beloved Mercedes. But the case was about to change gear.
As a result of the vehicle being stopped by the police, Privilege reviewed the existing claim and identified that at the time that the claimant made their claim, it was not in fact a stolen vehicle.
During questioning, police were surprised to find that the driver not only possessed a set of keys for the vehicle, but was also carrying authentic documentation, proving that they owned the car and that our claimant no longer did. But if they weren't dealing with a stolen car, what were they dealing with? Someone who didn't want to pay their congestion charge penalties.
In this case, the claimant, who lives in London, had accrued a number of unpaid congestion charges.
Each time she ignored a congestion charge, she was fined £130, and the amount owed racked up to around £4,000.
The vehicle was subsequently repossessed legally through the courts in lieu of monies owed for in respect to the congestion charges. Not content with that, the claimant reported her vehicle stolen the day it was repossessed.
Worse still, the real victims in this were the new owners of the car.
Unfortunately, the vehicle was then sold through an auction process in an effort to recoup monies.
The proud owners of the Mercedes 180 had just bought their new car at auction. Unbeknownst to them, their car had been reported stolen by its previous owner, our charge-dodging claimant.
Matters were then referred to the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department, where the claimant was then arrested and interviewed in respect of offences of fraud. They admitted their guilt and received a formal police caution in respect of that finding. They have since been ordered to pay monies back to privilege.
It's hard to imagine what possessed our cavalier claimer to rack up so many fines. Perhaps her hobby is collecting penalties, or maybe she'd zoned out.
This is not an unusual type of fraudulent activity. In the current economic climate, claimants will claim for virtually anything.
This motorist clearly had a blind spot when it came to respecting the law of the roads. She deliberately deceived the police and the insurance company in a blatant attempt to benefit from a false insurance payout.
I think this is an example where insurance fraud isn't victimless. Here we have innocent members of the public driving their vehicle which they believe is theirs, when in fact the police have stopped them. So psychologically, this would have been quite distressful for those members of the public.
Royal Mail is a much-loved British institution. It's a reliable service that we benefit from every day. Their mission is to always deliver, even if the package is damaged.
We lose or damage very few items, so we're always willing to consider compensation claims when they come in. We make every effort to investigate them, and that's to say, to investigate them in terms of what may have gone wrong.
But in March 2012, one particular case sparked a large investigation when several claims from a number of different people cropped up in the Midlands area.
In this case, we'd had a number of claims. They were sending the packaging to pawnbrokers, the gold dealers, but the jewellery had gone missing.
The packages contained extremely valuable items of gold jewellery and large sums of cash. When the parcels arrived empty, it looked like they'd been opened and resealed.
Well, the total value of claims made was £25,000, and we paid out over £15,000.
Royal Mail began an internal investigation. Firstly, looking at their own postal staff to establish if the packets could have been opened while in transit. Tony's team investigated the logs of the deliveries.
We then started to look for similar names, similar addresses, and we discovered that we had a web of people, at least 4 of them, and a web of addresses, and that we had compensation claims for items going back and forth between people and between addresses.
This strongly suggested fraudulent activity. The plot thickened when Tony received a tip-off.
But we received a call from a pawnbroker's where somebody was trying to cash several cheques to the value of several £1,000s, drawn against Royal Mail. The pawnbrokers themselves were suspicious because of the size of the cheque.
The pawnbroker turned the fraudster away. However, the dodgy scammers continued to claim for parcels allegedly meddled with. This time, Royal Mail refused to pay. Meanwhile, Tony's investigation team delved deeper and began to join up the dots.
The links were obvious. It was reasonably sophisticated in that some attempt was being made to hide through the use of aliases and a web of addresses.
Tony's team had uncovered the gang's plot. They were padding out empty parcels to try and frame innocent postal workers in a bid to get rich. The investigation led to search warrants being executed at 3 addresses, and 3 individuals were arrested.
They appear to have been operating for just under 2 years, and we became aware towards the end of that period. I think in this case, one of the gang members was a career criminal. The story that was told in court, that we probably believe, is that he was putting pressure onto the others to help him. So I think one person was benefiting, 4 people at least were involved, and 3 people actually were sentenced as a result of this.
The fraudsters appeared at Nottingham Crown Court for their roles in the fraud. Lee Wally received a 10-month suspended prison sentence, and Kevin Newton was sentenced to 12 months in prison. The other fraudster, Stacey Haining, was ordered to pay over £3,500 in compensation, as well as completing a one-year community order. Tony had stamped out the scam, and the fraudsters were in a royal mess. And for any other customers contemplating making a false claim, Tony has these words of warning.
My very simple message to anyone considering this sort of fraud is don't do it. Don't do it because not only do Royal Mail investigate, but the police investigate, and most other companies now investigate. But computers make this sort of crime increasingly difficult to commit. Once you start to lay some tracks, once you start to do the same thing 2 or 3 times, we will spot you and we will catch you.
IFED have arrested a suspect in a nationwide crackdown on travel insurance fraud.
You're under suspicion of fraud by false representation relating to the claim that's been made, alright? I can see you're upset about it, but unfortunately this is the way it's going to have to be dealt with today. Alright?
They are midway through a house search for items of interest.
From the bedroom so far, I found a couple of bank cards, which I'm going to seize or take notes of because they may relate to the claim that's been paid out. Some travel insurance documents that we'll look at seizing, and a camera that we believe is subject to the claim.
No area is off limits to the police. With Dave's years of experience at police raids, he offers a word of advice.
You're in a bit of a pickle here. To make the best of it, it generally would be to cooperate and just tell the truth.
All of a sudden, DC Aman Taylor is called to the bedroom.
Found a quantity of cash in the bottom of the cupboard, so we'll seize that under the proceeds of crime, and then we'll look at do some further inquiries back at the station once we've got everything together and put down a plan of action on how we're going to deal with it. It's interesting to find that amount of cash. It's not something you usually come across in a normal house search. Not sort of cash you'd expect to find during a house search.
Large sums of money, we would always seize it because you don't know where it's come from, and it's then his responsibility to explain where it's come from. That is the law in relation to money laundering and cash seizures.
The suspect is led out to the unmarked police car. It's been another success for DCI Dave Wood.
We arrived today with several objectives. The main one being was to locate and arrest our suspect, which we have done. He's been arrested for insurance fraud, and we've seized several exhibits which are relevant to that inquiry. He's now going to come back to the police station, transport provided by us, and he'll be interviewed in relation to these offences. So I am totally happy that we have mission accomplished this morning.
It's also been a good day for the wider IFED team around the country. 13 people have been arrested in today's crackdown of alleged travel insurance fraud. Officers seized thousands of pounds in jewellery, clothing and electronic items. These cases remain under investigation. Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us around £2 billion every year. That's almost £6 million a day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing around 14 fake claims every hour. Armed with covert surveillance systems,
Subject out the vehicle.
sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, A convicted drug dealer thinks a bump on the head will give him a bumper payout.
Mr. Foster claimed that he'd fallen from his top bunk during the night and that he'd been knocked unconscious, suffering a severe head injury.
Thames Valley Police continue to clamp down hard on suspected crash-for-cash gangs.
Hello, it's the police!
And after feeling under par, a golf professional tees himself up for a double bogey.
The insurance company grew suspicious because they received information that Mr. Turner had been working at a golf club.
Some criminals just don't know when to stop. And you'd think being locked up would be enough of a deterrent. But for some, time inside just seems like an excuse to steal from hard-working taxpayers. Too many prisoners now see bogus personal injury claims as a nice little earner.
And the kind of people who put in false claims while in prison are the kind of people who don't realise the implications of doing so, both cost and to their own freedom.
At Her Majesty's Prison, Manchester, the litigation team can sometimes be processing as many as 120 claims at any one time. These claims can be all sorts of trips, slips and falls, but one of the most common is for injuries sustained from falling out of bed.
There are a number of prisoners claiming to have fallen from the top bunk at Manchester. It's quite a hot topic. The injuries vary from case to case. Some claim to have banged their elbows, some claim to have bruised the side, some have suffered head injuries, front, back, facial injuries.
22-year-old inmate Callum Foster was awaiting trial, but soon appeared to find himself the victim of an unfortunate accident whilst asleep in his cell.
Mr. Foster claimed that he'd fallen from his top bunk during the night and that he'd been knocked unconscious, suffering a severe head injury.
2 months later, while still inside, Foster was reading a newspaper in his cell. He spotted an injury claims solicitor's advert and suddenly saw an opportunity to write himself what he imagined would be a blank cheque. After contacting his new solicitors, a claim soon arrived at the prison.
Initially, it was the solicitor's letter that raised our suspicions. They'd claimed that he had fallen out of his bed at 9 o'clock that morning, when we knew, looking from the records, that he was due to attend a review for his behaviour at 10 a.m. that morning.
Alarm bells had started to ring for the prison's litigation team, and a thorough investigation of the incident was launched.
Once we started to investigate the matter more thoroughly, we actually discovered that Mr. Foster was involved in an altercation on the yard that afternoon. He'd become extremely abusive towards staff, verbally abusive and physically abusive, and he had to be restrained.
After any such restraint, prisoners are automatically referred to medical staff and thoroughly checked over.
After the incident, he was seen by a nurse who noted that he'd received a small raised bump to the front of his head.
Foster realised there was an opportunity to exploit his earlier injury and came up with a clever plan to claim for a fall in his cell. At least it would have been clever had Foster not forgotten that his bump on the head had already been noted in the medical records a few hours before.
The records showed that later that evening, Mr. Foster had in fact pressed his cell bell and raised the alarm that he'd fallen from his top bunk. Medical attention was sought for him and a medical officer attended his cell. It was noted that he did have a slight bump to the front of his head.
Foster's ridiculous lies were unravelling fast, and when interviewed by local police, he answered no comment to all questions. In a groundbreaking case, Foster became only the second ever inmate in the country to be charged with fraud offences committed from the inside. Once again, he was heading for the dock at Manchester Crown Court.
Mr. Foster never actually admitted to his attempt on fraud. It was taken to trial and he received 9 months on top of his original sentence.
In court, a jury found Foster guilty and the judge was damning in his verdict. He told Foster, "No one should be under any illusion about the lack of resources public services have. Any such drain is to be abhorred, particularly by someone who has had such an antisocial history as you have."
I don't think this was a well thought out claim at all. The fact that he was claiming for an injury that he'd already sustained earlier in the same day, and the record was there, he did receive medical treatment for that injury, which he knew of, makes it not a sophisticated attempt at all.
Foster was looking for a bumper payday, knowing that substantial compensation had already been paid to prisoners. But his plan backfired, and instead he was landed with an extra 9 months inside.
The best thing about this job is successfully defending against fraudulent claims, getting a brilliant outcome, saving the taxpayer the money. It was a really good feeling that we could get this guy prosecuted.
Still to come, the Asset Protection Unit play cat and mouse with an evasive customer whose borrowed car has crossed the point of no return.
If I think that there's a danger that vehicle might be stolen, then I will authorise a snatchback, which is 2 of my staff go in to physically go and get the car back.
And an insider trader on the fiddle gets an unexpected visit from the IFED team.
And it wasn't long before Mr. Clegg received the famous knock on the door from IFED, and his skullduggery was uncovered.
Crash for cash is becoming a major policing issue. Currently, UK police forces are investigating 110 of these scams across the country. Reports claim that 1 in 7 personal injury claims are linked to deliberate crashes. These crashes are designed to milk insurance companies of up to £30,000 per crash. It's big money, and it's a serious danger to the public. Britain's police forces are determined to put the brakes on this type of crime, and Thames Valley Police is no exception.
Police, open the door now, last chance!
Detective Inspector Louise Roddy from 4th CID has a team of 25 officers dealing with crimes from murder to blackmail and fraud.
We work closely with the Insurance Fraud Bureau and the Crown Prosecution Service to make sure that we've got a watertight case to present at court.
Got a second person in here!
But it's not just costing the insurers thousands. These criminals are putting innocent lives at risk. People are getting seriously hurt.
Unsuspecting members of the public are driving along busy roads and are being involved in these accidents because they are targeted by such an organised group, and that's why we're involved in the investigation.
It's early morning at HQ. After months of hard work, today is the start of an operation designed to smash another suspected crash for cash gang, believed to be working in the area.
We want to send out a really clear message from Thames Valley Police that these offences will be dealt with robustly, that offenders will be arrested, and at any opportunity we'll prosecute them.
Helping to take the fight to the suspected scammers is Detective Sergeant Tony Madison, who quickly brings the officers up to speed.
Please expect the unexpected. We don't know what exactly we're going to find. What I will say is that other than our objective, our main arrest, which is highlighted in the arrest packs, there could potentially be other offences disclosed.
The coppers begin to head out, ready to hit the suspected fraudsters right where it hurts. With 5 separate warrants served across multiple raids, the rapid entry team are called in to assist at every single address.
Police officers, open up!
Quebec Sierra 50, out the address.
That's our man, security, that's our man. You're under arrest on suspicion of fraud, please.
3 suspects have already been arrested and taken away for further questioning. Evidence has been seized at various premises during 4 multiple raids so far. With just 1 address left to target, the team are hopeful that another suspected fraudster is about to be brought to book by the police. Sergeant Alex Clough is leading the raiding party into action.
We're off to conduct a warrant and hopefully arrest for fraud offences, dangerous driving. The intelligence that we've got is that we're going to go and arrest a male. That's the only male that we expect to find at the address. The offences that have been committed, we're sort of looking for documents like insurance documents, passports, identification, mobile phones. The warrant's going to be conducted as a door knock, but if no one answers, obviously we have the powers to force entry.
Once again, the team are assisted by rapid entry officers wearing protective clothing. Their job is to gain entry to the building as quickly and safely as possible, ensuring that suspects have no time to dispose of incriminating evidence.
Hey, it's the police. It's all right to come in. We've got a warrant to search this property.
But not every door knock yields a result.
Hello, it's the police. Police upstairs. Hello, police. Is anyone here? Hello, it's the police. You right?
Officers check round the back just in case.
Who else is in the address? Who else in here?
After looking over the premises for further occupants, the officer runs a check to verify the identity of the male tenant.
We suspect that there is a person living at this address that has committed offences. No, not you. But we still need to search the property. We'll need to search the whole property in relation to the offences of fraud, conspiracy to destroy or damage property, and also dangerous driving.
A thorough search is carried out across the house. Detailed checks are made in bags, boxes, drawers and cupboards in every room, making sure that no mattress is left unturned in the hunt for evidence.
Getting letters like that about an address just down the road.
Okay,
I'm thinking of our suspects linked with these guys.
Yeah.
This address, has that got anything that could link them?
We've just found some sort of various letters regarding financial arrangements relating to either the landlord of this property or the younger male occupant, but at a different address. So it may be that there's a group of addresses in the area where people are moving around, so it could be relevant.
As the search for evidence continues, the boys in blue check further documentation to try and confirm the details of all the occupants at the premises.
We've detained 3 persons, done some checks on them, and we are confident that they are not connected to the person that we were after originally, with some valuable intelligence, but unfortunately not the suspect that we were after.
This morning's search is over, but contacting the owner of the property may yield further clues.
That's us done. We've got some details of the landlord which we're going to progress with to find out whether or not our suspect lived here and perhaps afford an address to where they've gone to.
Whilst this team didn't get to arrest their man, the wider case remains under investigation, and the police's commitment to reduce crash for cash crime in the area continues. In times of financial hardship, as the bills start piling up, people begin to worry about keeping a roof over their heads. Thankfully, for a relatively low sum each month, income protection insurance is there to cover up to 70% of earnings should you fall ill. Especially useful if your job is more like a hobby, but relies on you being fit and well. 52-year-old professional Laurie Turner was one of the lucky few that got to ply his trade on the greens and fairways of Yorkshire, whilst helping local golfers improve their game. Unfortunately for Mr. Turner, a debilitating knee problem threatened to put paid to his ideal vocation and saw his golf career heading straight for the bunker.
The claim was that he was unable to work, which involved teaching golf and also playing golf on the pro circuit.
Luck was on his side. Turner had done the sensible thing and already had income protection insurance. Very soon after notifying insurers of his injury, he started to receive monthly compensation payments.
The insurance company grew suspicious because they received information that Mr. Turner had been working at a golf club and giving lessons to members of the public.
The insurance company called in a private investigator, who promptly dusted down his clubs, picked up the phone and booked himself in for an actual lesson with Mr. Turner.
Despite the fact that Laurie Turner had a knee injury, you can see that he's able to stand, swing a golf club, and it shows him receiving money at the end of the lesson.
With the lesson ended and his golf swing vastly improved, the investigator passed the conclusive evidence directly to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department at the City of London Police.
It was found that Laurie Turner was playing golf on the Professional Golf Association Northern and Yorkshire tours and receiving money for entering and playing in tournaments when also claiming on his insurance policy.
With the weight of the evidence stacking up against him, Turner was well and truly in the rough.
IFED arrested Laurie Turner at a golf shop he was working at, and he was prosecuted and charged with fraud by false representation.
Pleading guilty at Leeds Magistrates Court, he was ordered to carry out 140 hours of unpaid work and to repay over £8,000 that he had fraudulently claimed.
This type of insurance policy, income protection, is really important for people if they should fall ill and be unable to work, if they can't pay their mortgage. But unfortunately, Laurie Turner abused this policy by continuing to work and play golf and give golf lessons whilst receiving money from the insurance company.
As any unlucky driver knows, being left without a car after an unfortunate smash can leave you stuck indoors with the kids or unable to get to work. Thanks to legislation for insurance policyholders, a complimentary hire car is a real silver lining.
The main business of Accident Exchange is to provide hire vehicles for people involved in non-fault accidents. So if you're involved in an accident, it's not your fault. Accident Exchange can provide you with a like-for-like replacement car.
Unfortunately, what's great news for motorists can also be good news for fraudsters on the lookout for a free ride. Within Accident Exchange, the Asset Protection Unit, or APU, help keep a watchful eye on the fleet.
We have about 3,000 vehicles, mainly prestige vehicles, and APU's main role is protecting those assets.
Once the client's vehicle is repaired and sent back, they must return the replacement hire vehicle to the legal owners.
99% of clients and customers give the vehicle back and there's no problem. There's just the 1% where we need to take significant action.
When a customer fails to return the car and starts ignoring calls, Neil is placed on red alert. If they continue to drive, they will be breaking the law as the insurance is now invalid. There's an increased chance that the vehicle may go missing or be passed to a third party.
If I think that there's a danger that vehicle might be stolen, then I will authorise a snatchback, which is two of my staff go in to physically go and get the car back.
Snatchbacks are when the car's legal owners use a spare key to take the vehicle back directly from its location. Used as a last resort, this type of operation always carries an element of risk. It's 6 a.m. It's been a very early start for APU's Matt Sperrin and his colleague Erin Sims, who set off from HQ at 3 o'clock this morning. They're making their way to the family home of a client who hasn't returned a vehicle to Accident Exchange.
The hire company who've lent the vehicle out, they've been trying to communicate with these people for quite some time to get the vehicle back. Their period of hire has ended, but now they've got to the point where they can't communicate with the clients. They've been trying to call them, there's no answers, they won't reply to voicemails, emails, letters, texts and whatever else has been sent to them. So the only option that's been left to them to protect their asset is to recover the vehicle. They've given us the basic details of who these people are. We've done some background checks and it's just felt that the safest and easiest and best way to resolve the situation is to get the vehicle back in a covert manner. Hence the reason we've got the spare keys. We can use technology within the vehicle to see where it's parking overnight, to see what sort of times it starts up and moves in the morning. And should they be true to form, the vehicle should be parked up there now when we get there. Hopefully it won't be in a gated property and we'll be able to just get in it and scoot away.
As well as the all-important spare key, Matt has some clever tracker technology at his disposal. Using a smartphone app, he pinpoints the vehicle's exact location.
It's only a very small, tight side street, so...
Matt doesn't know what to expect when he attempts to snatch the car back from the client's drive.
It's this right here, just behind this van.
With an eyeball on the vehicle, it's important they position themselves for a quick getaway.
Go in there, turn around, and you can just sit in the entrance here, facing out, ready to go. And you can see down there then as well. I can see the vehicle there. You'll be able to see me getting into it. There.
Matt's finally located the car, and Snatchback is go, go, go.
So the vehicle's parked up on side street opposite us now. It seems fairly open, it's not gated. We may have to reverse up. I don't think we're going to get time to do a three-point turn, so we're just going to get in there, get in as quick as we can, and get on the main road and get away.
Time is of the essence. Now he's in, the last thing he wants to do is stall it. Matt has to be careful not to wake the client who's sleeping like a baby. He has to be quick and discreet. Snatchback complete.
Successful recovery. It's always difficult when we're getting vehicles back from down little side roads, side streets. You know, you've got to manoeuvre something out. This is quite a big vehicle, so managed to get out there, no damage. This is probably, what, £30,000 worth of someone's hard-earned money. And if it was 30 grand in cash in a bag, you know, we'd all be jumping up and down trying to get it back. It's the same principle for me, to be honest. You know, they might not care about it, it might not be their vehicle, but it is someone's vehicle. It's the livelihood of the business who own the vehicle, and it's in everybody's best interest to get it back unscathed.
One of the common hazards of the job is being pulled over by the boys in blue for suspected car theft. Once he's a safe distance from the location of the recovered vehicle, Matt contacts the police in case the clients report the vehicle as stolen.
It's just to let you know that we do now have possession of that vehicle. If somebody does ring up inquiring about it, if they could be just directed to ring the main office number, that would be fantastic, thank you.
Matt gives the car a once-over, noting the vehicle's condition and making a photographic record of the contents.
The car itself is in a complete state. There are sweet wrappers everywhere, drinks bottles, crisps. It obviously hasn't been cleaned inside or out. There is a lot of property in the boot, which tends to suggest two things. One, that they weren't bothered about the vehicle, it's not theirs, they don't want to treat it, you know, like it was their own. And that generally they didn't have any intention of handing the vehicle back.
Unfortunately for Accidents Exchange, the costs are still rising. Despite recovering their valuable asset, the car needs petrol to get to HQ, and they will still have to pay to return the car's contents to the clients.
I think they feel it's a victimless crime. They look upon hire companies or credit hire or whoever they've had the vehicle from, and they'll look at the business, especially if it's a large national company or international company, and they'll say, well, they've got thousands of cars, hundreds of thousands of cars. It doesn't matter to them. Whereas the truth of the matter is, it is valuable to someone. It is £30,000 worth of vehicle. It does make a business however many pounds a day while it's out on rent, and they can't do that whilst people like this are holding on to it.
The absent-minded customer will soon have their property returned, but their free ride at the insurer's expense is over.
It's really rewarding to get a vehicle back. It's got financial implications for the people that own the vehicle. We've helped save them a lot of money, hopefully. We've got back in a valuable asset for them. And at the end of the day, it's quite a nice feeling to know that we might have inconvenienced the client somewhat, which is actions they've all brought on themselves at the end of the day. So.
Insurance fraud comes in all shapes and sizes. It's committed by a whole variety of people, regardless of background or profession. From labourers to doctors, and from lawyers to footballers, it's always surprising to hear who's on the take. Even more shocking is when it happens from within the very area of business trying so hard to stamp it out. The insurance industry.
Mr. Clegg was employed by one of the main insurers as an insurance claims manager. So his day-to-day role would have been examining claims that come into the company and sorting those out, ones that should be paid out and ones that perhaps require a bit more scrutiny before they get paid.
Now firmly established as the head of the claims team, it didn't take long before Michael Clegg abused his position of trust. He was soon turning his daily toil in the office to his own financial advantage.
Mr. Clegg recruited 3 of his friends and got them to submit 3 separate fraudulent claims, each for medical disabilities and instances. He oversaw each one through the system and made sure that that claim was paid out back to his friend.
Fraudster Clegg cooked the books so that 3 separate claims were paid out over a 5-month period.
The whole scam depended on Mr. Clegg being in the position within the company that he was and him overseeing the checks and balances that would have kicked in and making sure the claims were paid out. This happened once, twice, 3 times. Total amount that was stolen from the company, £34,000, of which Mr. Clegg himself pocketed £14,000, and the remaining £20,000 was split between his 3 friends.
His employer soon noticed the irregular payments and got on the phone to IFED, the Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department at the City of London Police.
And it wasn't long before Mr. Clegg received the famous knock on the door from IFED, and his skullduggery was uncovered.
Within weeks, IFED made in-depth inquiries and began to investigate the fraudulent claims.
The inquiry quickly uncovered the motive behind Mr. Clegg's criminality. Mr. Clegg clearly found himself in a vulnerable position in the fact that he had £10,000 worth of gambling debts, and rather work out a plan to pay them back as any normal person would, he thought differently and invented this scam, roping in 3 of his friends to ultimately defraud his own employers of £34,000.
As Clegg soon found out, fraud is never the easy solution to clearing a string of bad debts.
Unfortunately for Mr. Clegg, this grand plan fell flat on its face and led to Mr. Clegg being arrested along with his 3 friends.
Michael Clegg and his accomplices soon found themselves on trial at Manchester Crown Court. Clegg pleaded guilty to fraud and was given a 2-year suspended sentence. His 3 fraudulent friends were given community orders of over 100 hours each for their part in the scam.
IFED deal with all types of insurance frauds, big, small, from organised criminals to one-off opportunistic offenders. However, it is disappointing when we do occasionally come across what we call an internal fraud. There's someone within the company that are supposed to be helping us prevent and detect insurance fraud are actually doing it themselves. Fortunately, it's quite rare, but when it does happen, IFED, along with the insurer, will take the necessary action.